Today I'm going to share with you this puffin that I'm creating in soft pastels. I'm working from a reference photo by Monique Castellani-Cran, who is also an artist. She does some wonderful colour pencil work and she has her own YouTube channel. If we haven't met before, my name is Pamela Ruddy. I'm an artist based in the northeast of Scotland. We do get puffins here. Last year I went to Auchmuty to try and see some. And I didn't see any then. I did get to see some fulmars, and I'm sure I'll do a drawing of those at some point. This year, lockdown permitting, I will try and see some puffins at Falskew, which is a bit up the coast from here. I'm really grateful to photographers like Monique for sharing their wonderful images with artists to use as reference. The first thing I do is mark out where I want the picture to be. If you're anything like me, the paper that you buy is not the exact same size as the inside bit of whatever mount you're likely to use, and it's expensive to get custom frames for every painting, so I mark out where I want the picture to be so that I make sure all the important elements are inside the picture. Next, I am freehanding this puffin. I will at some point do a video which talks about learning to draw and freehanding versus tracing versus scale dividers versus the grid method. The short version of that video is use whatever works for you. You will learn. The most important thing is, whether you're tracing it or whether you're freehanding it, you don't need to draw in all the little details. Now, when I saw this reference photo, one of the things that attracted me is I liked that there was the bright green grass and the bright blue bits of the sea. But I also liked the almost swirly, almost abstract element of the sea when it was out of focus like that. And I liked the kind of shape, and I kind of thought when I was doing the background that I would maybe emphasize that, be quite abstract with it and just kind of go and make it a bit swirly, and I kind of liked how it looked without the puffin, but I do end up changing that later and I'll explain why when I do. Blending with your fingers isn't ideal. People talk about the oils in your fingers. The most practical reason not to do it is actually just your fingers get covered in pastel and then you end up placing that pastel down in the wrong places, and so you have to keep wiping your hands off. So really, ideally you wouldn't do it. The best tool I've got for blending was a tip from Karen Margulis, and she uses like the foam that you put around pipes around your boiler. So I now use that too, and it's really good. I just didn't have it handy and I was a bit lazy and I used my fingers, and do as I say, not as I do. I wish I hadn't worked on the grasses at this stage, because I ended up having to go back and change the background a bit, and so I had to keep going around these bits of grass, and I didn't do the grass very well, so I had to keep on going back and redoing it, and it just made it harder for me than it should have been. I should have stuck to my start from the back, then work forward. So do the sea, then the puffin, then the grass. It probably would have worked out a lot better. So then going into the puffin, I'm picking up on the sort of darker bits of the head and body, and trying to just build up the form from there. Next I got to work on the detailed areas like the eye and the beak, and I was using a mixture of pastel pencils to try and get the detail in, and then also brightening up over that sometimes with the soft pastels, so that it's a bit brighter and more saturated. Because I tend to find that it shows up better than the pastel pencil. Now, with the cheek area, you'll see the way that I tend to work in general, which is I will put in a base layer which will be darker than the local colour, or the main local colour eventually. I'm then putting in the shadowed area, and then I'm putting in the highlighted area, and then I'm working on the texture, often particularly where those areas meet, as it goes from highlight to the base colour to the shadow colour, because textures can show up particularly strongly along those areas. They can be particularly noticeable, I mean. And speaking of textures, I'm trying to put that texture now into the body area. Of the feathers, I mean, it's not going to be individual feathers, and I don't want to make it look too fluffy, because obviously these puffins are quite sleek. But you can kind of you can see where the greys are in its feathers, and how that's making it look a little bit fluffy. But again, you don't want to overdo it, otherwise it will look, very fluffy. On the belly, I'm doing in the shadow area, and then a darker sort of mid-tone, and then I'm doing the highlighted colours that I can do over the top of mid-tone to get it more to where I want it to end up. Add in the details and brightest highlights and so on with the pastel pencil. Caran d'Ache is good for this. Faber-Castell's okay. Most of my pastel pencils are Faber-Castell, but I do have Caran d'Ache for white and black, and a couple of shades of grey. I would like to get more at some point. Now I'm trying to fix the grass. I'm trying to make it a bit more out of focus. So I'm scumbling a bit over the top to try and make it have less contrast within it. And I'm trying to make these stalks of grass look thicker, because the puffin's quite small. It's really close to the grass. Just refining the edges and shapes of the puffin, I think I'd maybe initially not quite got the angle right on the belly, because it is meant to look a little bit more pot-bellied than I think I'd had it. And also, as I was trying to say earlier, when you're doing your drawing, by the time you've sort of done the background, often it's sort of encroached upon the drawing and you're having to redraw it anyway. It's worth taking a look at your drawing and just seeing if there's bits that need changed. I think I made slight changes to the shape of the beak. I wanted to do this sort of abstract effect because I like the swirl of the ocean behind, and I wanted to emphasise that and make it a little bit more of an abstract aspect to the picture and play it up. Once I'd done the puffin though, I realised it actually detracted a lot, like it was coming forward too much. There was just too much contrast in it, it was too brightly white. So I added a lot of blue over the top, and I tried to reduce the contrast in the areas down, mainly by scumbling blue over the white, but also making the darks a bit less dark as well, and just trying to make it, just tone it down a bit. It's still probably a stronger statement than in the photograph, but hopefully it doesn't now detract from the puffin, but just gives it a nice background. Thank you for joining me for this puffin. I have got more wildlife videos that you can watch here. As a little aside, I decided to record the voiceover for this video in my car. Parked my car at the seafront just whilst I was trying to record the last bit. Just kind of swooped down and landed on my car. So it's good fun. Definitely, you want to have those wildlife experiences yourself.